tendency is to be, initially, at the start of life, we don't have the power, obviously. The child doesn't have it. Of course the world has it. And the initial reaction to a heavy letter 10 is to feel a little overwhelmed by the world and a little anxious. And this includes a heavy Saturn rising, for instance. There's often an authority figure who is weighing heavily on the child.
Or two.
Saturn there, sometimes more than one. And it's only with growth and time and learning to do something in the world that we get a sense of we really do have that power ourselves. It's not all out there in the world amassed arrayed against us. And many people go through life still doing a lot of projecting of it and a lot of repressing of it, a lot of self-blocking of it, and have to learn, find a place that they can have that sense of accomplishment, achievement, and power in their own hands. It has to be within the limits of the law, but within those limits, there still are a lot of things we can do.
How do you work through the chart when a person who's blocking themselves and they have this incredible, wonderful potential? What can you do for them as a grown person?
You suggest small steps, bite-sized goals. Little steps, accomplish them successfully, and then another little step and do that, and another little step and do that. Because the big danger with a heavy letter 10 is they want to be on top already. And it takes one small step at a time to climb there. Now, Virgo knows instinctively that that's what it takes. Virgo is the one small step at a time and comfortable with that. But letter 10 wants to be there already.
Yeah, but Capricorn is spiritual.
That's what I just said. There's anxiety connected to it as long as the power is out there and not in here. It's not until we are using power ourselves and aware of our power ourselves that we get over that anxiety. Letter 10 is anxious, usually, until we get a sense of power and find out that we can do it.
But is it true that the Capricorn, with all that fear or that anxiety, is also the most determined and will plod along until
Because
they achieve
generally speaking, yes. Unless they project it all or really repress it, they will keep going until they get there. And they will be successful. And it is partly because they are driven by the anxiety that they do keep going. They just know that that's the way they gotta go. But at times the anxiety really can be a detriment, can block their effectiveness. And one of my other experiences that was a good example of this was a fellow student when I was in college who had Mercury in Capricorn. Now you find that very often not quite confident in their mental ability. Mercury in the 10th house or Mercury in Capricorn. Mercury was Saturn. Einstein, for instance, had Mercury-Saturn conjunct in the 10th house, and he was considered retarded when he was small.
So was I.
Very backward.
So was that.
Later turned out, of course, to be genius. Another case that I had with a child with a Mercury-Saturn conjunction was definitely considered retarded, and now he's a genius. And it takes time and effort and small steps to find out what they can do.
And determination.
Determination, and they usually have that determination to keep on going. But occasionally, as I said, they will repress it, never find their ability. This particular case, we had to take an exam in 8 subfields of psychology. And we had to get a high pass in 6 of the 8, including our specialty field, which for both of us was clinical. And we had 2 different times we could take the exams, a semester apart. So he decided he was afraid he wouldn't make it with a high pass for his own specialty field clinical. He decided he'd take all the rest and wait till the next semester to take the clinical exam and have the whole semester to study for that one. Well, afterwards, when he looked at the clinical test, he kicked himself because it was an easy one that semester and he could have passed it. Next semester, when he took it, he failed.
Well, he programmed himself to fail.
But that meant he couldn't go on to the PhD. He passed at the level of getting a master's, but he couldn't go on to the PhD. So sometimes we just have to go on and try anyway and find out what we can do. And another case, that's one of the cases in my casebook actually, was a woman who had Saturn in the 3rd house, which is again the same principle, letter 10 and letter 3. And I didn't even mention her case because it was part of a grand trine in air, and I assumed, she's got to know because it turned out in the interview where they were discussing it with her, she had a bachelor's degree in mathematics, she had an MD degree, she was a successful psychiatrist, and in the interview she said, I don't have a very good mind. I said, what kind of proof do we have to get past that?
Saturn in the third house is pretty, can that do no problems as well as?
It's, remember that the whole letter 10 principle represents the limits. And so we don't know till we try whether it is a genuinely limited mind or just a person who's anxious and has to keep on working with it to prove that they really have the power. But there will be cases where it is genuine limits of some kind. The person really has some kind of restriction that are, and that's the thing, part of letter 10 is these limits that are bigger than we are, that we just have to accept and live with them, and part of the time it may just be something we can overcome by action, by learning, growing, developing, or we don't know that we try.
Could it make a person feel that they might be a little bit?
Yeah, that's what we've done, everything we've just been saying.
Yeah, well,
The
I know a very bright
anxiety that
person
they,
has Saturn in every form in the third house, and she's very, very bright. But
Uh-huh.
she actually really feels that she was a little insane or she had problems to the point of it.
well, it's a person with a basic tendency to anxiety that has to do what they can do and keep proving that they can do it and do more and grow gradually.
I know somebody with that took the moon with Cancer in the third, and they study and study and learn, and they know more than anybody I've ever met.
Uh-huh.
Just driven.
Yes.
You know,
Remember, the essence is to get up on top. Letter 10 is top. And if it's in the third, connected to 3, they'll want to be on top of the mind. They got to have control over their mind. They got to have power with their mind. They got to achieve with their mind. They got to have a profession that involves the mind. See, this is the logical connection of the principles. Once you're clear about the principles, then it's a matter of logic to put it together. But you can't specify the details. So for one person, it might be a genuinely retarded person. For another person, it might be a person just who lacks confidence in their mental ability. And if they work at it, they may prove to have a superior mind.
I mean, you could, for instance, say you had astrological twins born on the same day. They wouldn't have similar intellect or similar function.
Oh, not necessarily. You could have major differences in a matter of minutes.
But even if you didn't, would the two people be different, is what I'm saying?
Yes,
Like
they would be
their
different.
Culture and environment and all that
They
stuff.
definitely would be different. Absolutely. Twins born even a minute or two apart can have major differences.
I
And-
believe it's just an hour apart.
Oh, an hour is a
Charts show
huge
quite a
change.
bit of difference in each chart.
Yeah, an hour is a huge change. Yeah, but I've seen major differences with them minutes apart. When you use all the fine points, which you're going to be introduced to in the next 2 days.
No, what I'm really saying is, when you have a certain chart, it could be used any way till you don't know whether they'll use it most constructively or destructively, or is there a way of
Right,
knowing?
no, there is no way to know what they will do with it in detail.
Darn it.
There's no way. I'm glad, myself. I would hate it to be so deterministic that we couldn't change it. It is open-ended. Life is open-ended. We can change.
No,
With
it's not
knowledge,
that that
we do
bothers
change.
me as much as it isn't exact enough science to say, aha, here I've got
No.
something.
You have something, you have principles, but not what they will do with them in detail. And that fact leaves life open to them to do better things with the principles when they understand them. So there's hope that we can change it for the better. Once we understand the principles, we can select better ways to express them, to manifest them.
It's like a blueprint, you can build a house out of brick or out of.
Yes, you can have the blueprint of the house, and you can use a lot of different materials to construct it, and different kinds of paint and wallpaper, and different kinds of furnishings. But all you are dealing with is a basic blueprint, not the details.
So they will have certain tendencies, for sure.
I was gonna say, can't you,
Certain
Can't you-
principles.
look in the chart and see some tendencies that might very well be there to indicate how somebody is handling those things?
You can make only an educated guess, and you'll be frequently wrong if you insist on trying to be too specific. You'll be wrong a lot. technical details. You may even not even hit the detail that they expressed, but at least you'll give them the idea, so they can say, well, I think I know what you mean. This is the way it is in my life. You say, yeah, that's part of it, that fits. Or they may say, if you've given them 6 different details, I've done them all. Now, if the astrologer says, this one,
Oh, dogmatic, like,
right, so then they come back and say, yes, that's right. But it doesn't help them understand the principle. They don't understand that there were 5 other things they did that were equally part of that part of their nature. And they don't see what they can do to change it and make it better. So if you give them the principle, illustrations of the idea, and then see what they do with it. Remind me to give you one of my favorite examples of that. Some of you have heard it before. When we get through letter 12. This is the woman with Neptune on the cusp of the 4th house. And I've used it as an example. So some of you have heard it before. But let's go on first